Okay, I'm starting my 2025 NFL draft quarterback breakdowns with the absolute best QB in college football, Cam Ward. With Cam Ward, you can draw a line under his name, and then you've got all the rest of the quarterbacks in this year's draft. This is QB Unfiltered, my take. It's Cam Ward, and then everybody else.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever...
Okay, last year when I did these, I said that Jaden Daniels out of LSU was my number one quarterback, and that Michael Penix Jr. out of the University of Washington was my number two guy. I also said with 6 quarterbacks that they were projected to go in the first round, that you could take Daniels and Penix, draw a line under them, and then the other 4 guys, you could put them like in a Yahtzee cup and spill it out on the table and just see where they fall. But it was, in my opinion, Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix Jr. This year, I'm saying the same thing about Cam Ward. He is the man in this year's draft. He's the guy that should go number 1. He's obviously going to be the first quarterback taken. And I think there's a lot of daylight between Cam Ward and the rest of the quarterbacks that are going through the draft. Okay, now there's going to be other QBs taken in the first round, I would imagine, but Cam Ward is the only surefire franchise guy, in my opinion. And I've been on the Cam Ward train for a long time. You know, he caught my attention when he was at Incarnate Word. And then I really followed him at Washington State, Wazoo, and was really fired up that he ended up at the University of Miami. There was some debate as to whether or not he was going to go into the draft or whether he was going to transfer to Miami. Miami's one of the teams that I've always followed, you know, ever since Schnellenberger and Kozar and those guys. And so he was on my radar. And I said last year before spring ball started, when he first enrolled at Miami, that this guy was the best QB in the country, and that if Cristobal and Shannon Dawson, the offensive coordinator for the Canes, used him right, they had such a tremendous weapon. I watched every one of their games this year. I did analysis on every one of their games, and I called Cam Ward the best quarterback in college football before the season started. I called him the best quarterback in college football during the season, and he's the best quarterback sitting in the draft right now. Okay, so before I get into my Cam Ward breakdown, I need to talk about what I call the 4 pillars of quarterback play. These are the 4 areas, according to me, that your quarterback has to master and be skilled in order for him to be effective for your offense and to be a winning QB for your team and your organization. And those 4 pillars are these. You start with number 1 is mental. Mental is basically decision making. And in my opinion, that's the number 1 skill that a quarterback has to have. He has to be a great decision maker. If he's not a great decision maker, it really doesn't matter anything about his arm or his legs or anything else physically. He's got to make great decisions when the ball's snapped. Also breaking down defenses, right? Being able to decipher coverages, read coverages, fronts and blitz checks, pass protection. He just has to be able to master that playbook and go out there and execute the vision of the offensive coordinator. Number 2 then in the 4 pillars is physical. And it starts and ends with your feet, always with a quarterback. It starts and ends with a quarterback's feet. Then it goes to pocket management, which is another byproduct of feet. Then it goes to his arm. And with the arm, I'm really interested in the accuracy, the arm talent, not so much the arm strength, but the accuracy. And then the throwing mechanics. Right. And basically, to put it in a nutshell, with the throwing mechanics is when the decision is made and you are going to pull the trigger to get the ball out when you're throwing it. That ball is up and out without any wasted motion, and it gets out of your hand on time, which is such a crucial part of the passing game. Okay, number 3 then is leadership. And we're talking about on the game field, on the practice field, in the locker room, in the football building, leadership. And then number 4 is miscellaneous. And miscellaneous is basically everything that a quarterback carries with him that's inside of him, his makeup, right? His character, his attitude. You know, the quarterback is the face of the franchise. Your quarterback is your guy, and he has to be able to represent the team, represent the organization in a positive manner. Also, how he deals with the press, how he deals with the media. It's just image based. And lastly, with miscellaneous, he's got to be an alpha. Now, this ties in closely with the leadership stuff, but your quarterback has got to be one of those guys on the team. There's a handful of them that basically runs the football team from a player's standpoint. Okay, so as I break down Cam Ward, I'm going to be referring back to these 4 pillars of quarterback play. So here we go. We'll start with Cam Ward's mental ability. You know, he's a good decision maker, not consistently great. Okay. And that can change, and it has to change, because one of the things that I had a problem with him this year at Miami was he had a habit of, when they were throwing the ball, of bypassing the short route who's standing wide ass open and holding the ball in the pocket and waiting for the intermediate routes to open up to try to get the ball down the field. And what this did was that messes up your rhythm and tempo of the actual route concept. Okay. And then the second thing that it did was it put a lot of stress on Miami's offensive line. Now, those guys got better as the season rolled along, but early on, they were rough on the O-line. And the longer that Cam held the ball in the pocket, the more the pocket broke down on him. So that's one thing that I think he has to change when he moves to the NFL. Just run the offense and take what the defense gives you and play catch, throw completions and move the sticks. Now, Cam Ward obviously knows defenses. Okay. He knows coverages, fronts, blitz, pass protection. You know, he spent his entire college career with 3 different programs, and all 3 of them ran the air raid. Now, there's one thing you can say about the air raid and quarterbacks that play in the air raid. Those guys are well coached on dissecting defenses and especially throwing the ball, understanding coverages, understanding leverage, understanding grass, you know, anticipation on throws, just everything that a quarterback needs when he moves to the next level to play. And it's amazing to me when I watch the NFL play, the quarterbacks that are playing in today's game that don't understand all of those things in the passing game. But Cam Ward really does. Okay, now I'm going to throw this into the mental category, and that is Cam had some times this year in the games where he was like playing too cool for school. It just drove me nuts. You know, one of the things that he did a lot in the early part of the season and got a little bit better as the season went, but when he would scramble and break pocket and now he's past the line of scrimmage and he's running and he's fair game, he would start to angle to the sideline and he'd have a defensive guy or two coming downhill to make a play on him, and he would slow down and almost stop on the field of play, you know, expecting the defensive guys to pull up because he's right on the sideline there, and then he would just casually step out of bounds. And that used to drive me crazy because, you know, damn well there's a lot of defensive guys playing out there in college football that don't care if they get kicked out of a game by lighting up the starting quarterback for the other team. You know, Cam's got to get that cleaned up because that's going to put him in a bad situation when he ends up playing against somebody that just doesn't care if they get fined for a late hit or a cheap shot or whatever. They're going to take the opportunity to take him out. And then he did some stuff, during the games where he would, his mechanics would just go to hell, and he would flat foot it back there and just sort of flick the ball. It looked really neat. It almost got his running back's knee blown out against Iowa State in the Pop-Tarts Bowl. And he just doesn't need to do that stuff. I always used to tell my quarterbacks, don't be cool, be good. And Cam Ward is great. Just needs to cut out some of that extra curricular cool stuff that he does on occasion. But he's a good decision maker and he understands offense. Okay, physical. Cam Ward is 6'2" and between 220 and 225 pounds. He's a big, strong, physical quarterback. And where this helps him out is in the pocket. He is able to step out of tackles, step out of sacks, get out of trouble because he is strong enough in the pocket when it starts to break down on him. His feet are good. They're a little inconsistent. Okay. And I'm a big feet guy. Always have been. I think that when Cam would execute his feet properly and everything was working right, the rhythm and the tempo, which is directly tied into the feet, he was a freaking machine throwing the ball. But I think that there were times where his feet got him into trouble. But his feet are inconsistent, and those are things that can be coached up. Okay, his arm, he's really talented. He has the ability to change his arm slot on different throws. And where this comes into play and where he really does a great job with this is if he's getting pressure from somebody on the defensive line or a linebacker or whatever, and he's got to be able to throw the ball, but he's got a defensive guy that's like in the way. He's able to drop his arm down and go 3/4 to sidearm and get the ball out, a lot like Mahomes does, right? And then he does a hell of a job with the punch screens and the bubble screens. I call it throwing hand grenades out there, where he's just going to catch the snap, and it's like turning the double play for a shortstop in baseball, where he just catches a snap, he drops that arm down and just flicks it out there without the laces. That's another great skill he has. And so he's able to deliver the ball in different arm slots. Now, with the arm slot, he would drop his arm slot down on occasions when he didn't have to. And his natural delivery, right? His natural delivery, you're going to be more accurate with your natural delivery than you are dropping the arm slot. You just are. And so along with his feet being consistent, I think he consistently, when he is able to throw it with his regular natural throwing motion and arm slot, do that. But he's got really good arm talent. He's got a really quick release. When he decides to pull a trigger, it's up and back and it's out and it's fast. Not a lot of wasted motion. He throws the sail route, which is a deep out route. He's a machine throwing that. He throws great seam verticals, and he's really effective on RPOs, where he'll put the ball down and show it to the back, and then he's able to pull it up fast and get it out and do that with such speed and accuracy. He's really good with the RPOs. I thought Miami should have ran more quick game with him this year, because with the quick game, it helped their offensive line out. I think Cam's feet were better in the quick game, right? And he was just such a surgeon throwing those slants and little hitches and stick routes, but he can really throw the ball short, and he understands spacing and leverage. Okay, number 3, leadership. I think this is what really separates Ward from the others. This with along with miscellaneous, but his leadership, much like Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix Jr. last year, when you talk to Miami's coaches and when you talk to Miami's players, they all said the same thing about Cam Ward. They said that it was impactful, his leadership, and it was immediate. As soon as he stepped on campus, stepped on the practice field and in the locker room, he took over and he was one of the alphas, right? And not a boisterous leader. He's not a yeller and a screamer. But when he speaks, people listen. His teammates listen because they respect him, and he leads by example. So when you're talking about a guy that's first in the film room in the morning, that's him. The guy that's first in the weight room, that's him. The guy that's first on the practice field, that's him. The guy that's the last to leave all of those at the end of the day, that's him. Leads by example, right? And he plays with a really nice swagger, but it's not obnoxious. Okay. There are some quarterbacks that played in college football this year that played with obnoxious swagger, and that wasn't Cam Ward, but he definitely played with an attitude and a swagger that his teammates fed off of. And you could just feel the energy coming from him in the games when he's on the field, on the sideline, when he's sitting on the bench. He just exuded that leadership and that swagger and that confidence. And the other thing with his leadership, he's one of these quarterbacks that's always on an even keel with his emotions. And that's so huge. He could throw a touchdown pass, thread the needle, throw an absolute dart for a touchdown. And he would come to the sideline with the same look on his face as if he threw a silly interception. He wouldn't go in the tank. So in other words, Cam Ward handled adversity and success the same way. And that's a great quality for a quarterback to have. Okay, number 4, miscellaneous with him, along with his leadership skills. I think that these are the two that really separate him. He was the face of the franchise at Incarnate Word. He was the face of the franchise at Wazoo, and the same at Miami. And the minute he steps in the building for the NFL team that drafts him, he's going to be the face of their franchise, and he's going to be perfect for any team that selects him. He's professional. He's a team guy. He's a competitor. He's a great teammate, and he's a good person. Okay. Good morals, good upbringing, good parents. He's just a quality guy. And that's the kind of guy that you want as your starting quarterback. And if he's got skills on top of that, you've got a star. You've got a franchise guy that's going to take you places. Okay, I talked earlier about dealing with the press and the media. You listen to him talk after games. You listen to him in the interview rooms after games, and he says all the right things, right? Says all the right things, doesn't give any bulletin board material for his opponents, respectful, always talking up his teammates, always positive, great skill to have, because he's going to have microphones shoved in his face every day coming off the practice field in the NFL and after every game. He does a great job with the media. Ask yourself this question: how many times can you think of in Cam Ward's college career where you read about him doing some stupid shit off the field? It didn't happen. And again, that is a huge component of being a successful quarterback at any level, but particularly in the NFL, right? A lot of temptations, a lot of stuff out there, a lot of traps for guys to fall into. He's got a great head on his shoulders, and he makes good decisions off the field. Anytime that your face of the franchise, your starting quarterback, becomes a distraction because of doing stupid shit off the field, anytime he becomes a distraction that the coach has to deal with or the owner has to deal with, that's not a good situation. And just like Jaden Daniels, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, Drake May, Cam Ward hits it out of the park in the miscellaneous category. Okay, this is the first of my postseason pre-NFL draft breakdown of quarterbacks. As I said, I'm going to be doing about 4 or 5 other QBs as we go. So my question to you guys is, will Cam Ward be the first quarterback taken in the draft? I think we all know the answer to that. And what other quarterbacks are going to go in round 1, in your opinion? Okay, like and subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed the content. This is QB Unfiltered. And remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.